You are listening to the Overthinker's Guide to Joy, episode 115. This is the one where we talk about mindfulness, how to slow down and be present, and all the benefits that come from it. Let's dive in. This is a podcast for overthinkers, overdoers, and overachievers who are tired of feeling overanxious and just want to feel better. I'm your host, certified life coach, Jackie DeCrenis. Hey there, and welcome back. So for those of you who are wondering about how it's going with my new puppy, Milo, well, he's almost 11 weeks old, and he is learning new things every day. But the big surprise to me is that I'm learning too. And what I mean by I'm learning is not just having a new puppy, and although this is not my first rodeo having a puppy, it's been about 12 years. So I am definitely rusty. And if I'm being totally honest, I'm not sure I did a very good job training my last puppy, because Blaze in some ways was trained because he was super loving or naturally loving. He followed me everywhere, and he was like the snuggliest little dog you ever met. And he wasn't a biter or a chewer, but he did have terrible separation anxiety and anxiety in general. And I half jokingly would always say that it's probably why we were very codependent, because he didn't like me to leave him, and then I felt badly every time I did. He was also an incessant barker of anything outside, like birds or anything that came to the door. Milo, on the other hand, is a different breed and a totally different personality. He is not clingy. He does not seem to be codependent. He's very independent, but he's a bit of a chewer, which a lot of puppies are. And he's also gone from being a sleepy little low-key puppy to one that is full of energy. But I am very committed to training this puppy. Not just crate training and housebreaking, but all the basic commands like sit and stay, and I don't want him to pull on a leash, and I want to teach him not to chew on furniture and shoes, and most especially not people. And he really is very smart, and he's a fast learner. But what's really interesting is how much he's teaching, or dare I say, training me. I am a world-class multitasker, and I pride myself on efficiency. But as I have gotten older, or perhaps I should say wiser, I've come to learn, and I preach, that multitasking isn't all that it's cracked up to be. Multitasking, which is almost a prerequisite for being a high-powered business person and certainly a working parent, it's not a good operating strategy day to day. It's okay in a crisis, but when it comes to managing your own anxiety and your relationships, it really does more damage than good. Now, I've done podcasts around the subject of multitasking before and how it really isn't that good for us. But today I want to explore the science behind it. And that is attention. What's happening in our brains when we're present, and how distractions, especially our phones, impact our ability to focus. So there's two main types of attention. There's focused attention and sustained attention. And focused attention is focusing on one task at a time, like reading or conversing with somebody. Sustained attention is the ability to focus on a task over time, like when you're at work or while listening to someone talk, say a lecture, for example, or even this podcast. So the prefrontal cortex is key in both types of attention. This is the part of the brain that helps with decision-making, focus, and impulse control. But the million-dollar question is, why is it so hard to pay attention? Sustained or focused? Well, first let's talk about that neurotransmitter that everyone loves, dopamine. Dopamine is that chemical that lights up our brain when we do things like take a bite of sugar, or when we get a text from someone we like, or when we get a bunch of likes on an Instagram post. All of those are dopamine hits. But dopamine is addictive. And as human beings, we're always looking for that next dopamine hit. And sometimes that can show up like buying something online or in a store, Sometimes it can be coffee. It can be falling in love. It can be getting a job or getting a job offer. All of those things create that kind of dopamine hit. And like I said, because smartphones and constant notifications, whether it's email, text, or even just on an app, that keeps feeding that addictive loop of needing more and more dopamine. So, because of our addiction to our smartphones and all that is available to us on them, multitasking and that need for that next dopamine hit is a very hard habit to break. And when we switch tasks, that is, we lose focus on one and go to another, we need time to get back into the rhythm of the original task. So why am I bringing this up regarding my puppy training endeavors? Well, it turns out I thought I was on a pretty good roll on the puppy training. I got my puppy to sleep in his crate through the night from 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. by the third night, and he was waiting to go potty until the morning. So I thought that was a major victory. He even started using a string of bells that I tied to my office door during the day when he needed to go outside to go potty. Again, another victory. He was playing with his own toys. He was being very quiet during my client sessions on phone and Zoom. But then all of a sudden, I noticed that if I got on the floor to play with him and I was checking my phone or I was trying to have a conversation on my phone, he started biting me and acting really, really rambunctious. It was like he was a different dog. So I'm thinking to myself, well, what happened to my mellow, little sleepy, good listening puppy? Why was he being such a terror all of a sudden? And then I realized it wasn't him that changed. It was me. When I sat on the floor with him, I was signaling to him that I was coming down to his level, and he thought it's time to play. And I thought, well, I could throw the ball with him or play with him on the floor, but I could still finish my phone call, or I could write a few things down, or I could check my emails. But for him, playing means chewing and running and jumping. And if I was looking at my phone or trying to write on a pad of paper, he could feel my attention diverted. It was me that was causing him to act out. And when I put my phone down or I put my pad of paper down, and I really focused on him, he swapped out chewing on my fingers for an appropriate chew toy. He brought the ball to me to play fetch. He even sat quietly next to me and chewed on one of his puppy bully sticks. The only thing that changed was that I stopped multitasking because I was now present. Now, I was mindful of him, even when I wasn't interacting with him while he chewed or chased his ball, but he could tell I was still paying attention to him, and that made him happy, so he stopped acting out. And that was when a light bulb went off for me. And I thought, this 10-week-old little guy is teaching me a lesson about nature and connection. He's reminding me about the importance of mindfulness and being present. And it turns out that studies show that mindfulness can reduce stress and anxiety by lowering activity in the amygdala. That's the stress center of the brain. And it increases activity in the prefrontal cortex. That's the area of the brain that's responsible for regulation and focus. So in other words, we both became calmer when we were focused on each other. But this really goes for everything, not just puppies and their human counterparts. I coach a number of couples, and one of the biggest arguments that occurs with all couples is when one person is talking and the other is looking at their phone. Whether it's a work thing, or video games, or apps, or texts, or just managing their calendar. Nothing makes couples angrier than not having their undivided attention of their partner when they are talking to them. Women in general already don't think their husbands are listening, but this goes for some men too. And certainly this dynamic goes for same-sex couples as well. Because when someone is fully present, it improves the relationship. Because when you give someone your undivided attention, they feel heard and valued. And the same is true for our children, our employees, our coworkers, our bosses, our friends, and clearly our pets. So, what are some practical takeaways from this? Well, the first one is really obvious. Put your phone away during key moments, whether that's meals, family time, or meetings if possible. The second is practice active listening. When interacting with someone, practice listening without interrupting or planning your response. Now, I have to admit, for years, I thought being engaged in a lively conversation meant constantly chiming in, interrupting, and finishing someone's sentences. I didn't know that this is not active listening. It's just active interrupting. And being present or mindful also means taking a pause and being mindful of yourself, your own breathing, slowing down, slowing your roll. And notice what happens when you give yourself a few minutes to literally catch your breath and then mindfully breathe. Another action of mindfulness is to be aware and appreciative of simple pleasures, like eating and drinking, like taking a hot shower, like jumping into a refreshing pool, like taking time to walk on the beach. Not just inhaling your food or guzzling a glass of water, but really savoring a meal, commenting on it, chewing slowly, drinking a cold glass of water or a hot cup of coffee, and spending a moment to just be grateful for that. This is mindfulness. And this is how you connect to others more deeply, and how you connect to yourself so that you stop feeling like a pinball in a pinball machine. And just to be super clear, I am not perfect at any of this. I'm not a saint, I'm not on a soapbox, and I'm no different than you. I needed my 10-week-old puppy to remind me that I was revisiting an old bad habit. I was trying to multitask. And that is, I was trying to answer texts and emails while playing with him. And he wasn't having it. So he was being kind of naughty by biting and jumping on me. And he was basically letting me know that I was kind of being naughty too. So today, here's your homework. Just practice being a little more present when you are with others, or even all by yourself. And see if you don't feel just a little less anxious and a little less overwhelmed by just being present. All right, friends, that is what I have for you today. As always, I thank you for listening. And if you want to connect with me and find out about other ways to feel more calm and less anxious, find me on my website at jackiedecrenis.com. I look forward to talking to you next time, and bye for now. If you would like to learn more about working with me as a coach, you can connect with me through my website at jackiedecrenis.com. That's jackiedecrenis.com.